said before, your first job is not your last job. So don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. That's powerful advice for students and young professionals who feel pressured to find the perfect career path. Can you share how that lesson shaped your own career and why flexibility early on can actually be a strength for students starting out?
Sure. Well, I love that quote. And I think it is a testament to my career path. So when I graduated from college, I thought I was going to go into the world of finance. I spent a year in Chicago working for a big real estate investment firm. As I like to say, I did a lot of PowerPoint presentations and Excel modeling, skills that I still use to this day. But after a year, I decided my heart was in government and public service and politics. And so a friend of mine, the two of us, we rented a U-Haul, we quit our jobs, and we moved to Washington, D.C. without any jobs. We did have some family there, so we were able to had time to figure it out. And I started working on Capitol Hill, spent ultimately 10 years there in a variety of roles, started at the bottom in a senator's office, worked my way all the way up to policy director, working on a committee staff and chief of staff, so running his office. I then worked, quote unquote, downtown in DC for a trade association, a big public company, and a issue campaign. I then decided, my husband and I decided DC was awesome. We'd been there 20 years, but we had a family. He was from Indiana, and we decided we were ready for something else. And so we moved to Indiana. I thought I was going to take a break. I was doing some consulting. Then this opportunity came about with the Indiana Chamber, and which has been an extreme honor. I'm sure we're going to get into that later. But I say all of that to say I wouldn't have gotten each of my successive jobs if I hadn't done the job before. And I was always willing to say yes. I believe to my core that you shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and sometimes you got to take a leap of faith. And I think that diversity of experience that I've had throughout my career has allowed me to do all of these things. I'm confident that I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't done all those things.
And then you grew up with parents who are really engaged in their community, and you even wrote a school report on Pat Schroeder, yes. One of the first women in Congress.
Uh-huh.
And that sounds like an early spark for leadership. And looking back, what was the moment where you first felt pulled toward public service and leadership work?
I'm from a small town in Massachusetts, and both my parents were very involved in the community. My mom was on our local school committee and chair of our school committee for a number of years. So I remember her going to countless town meetings and school committee meetings and just always being engaged. My dad was a builder, and he got put into the school building committees repeatedly. Every time our school or our town needed to build a new school, he would get himself on the building committee. And so I just always knew that being involved and supportive of your community was important. And I have tried to follow in my parents' footsteps from that early age, because I feel like it gives me energy. It is just a part of who I am.
That early interest eventually took you to Washington, where you worked for Senators Jude Gregg and Scott Brown, and even became one of the youngest Senate chiefs of staff. Working in such high-pressure environments at a young age, what did you learn about leadership and teamwork that students could apply when they're stepping into their first internships or jobs?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I was one of the youngest Senate chiefs of staff, and one of the things that I did when I first took over as chief of staff, I sought out every other Senate chief of staff on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, and asked them to go to coffee with me and said, hey, I just started in this role. Do you have any advice for me? What are the things that you should think about? How can we work together? And those relationships that I formed, 15, 20 years ago, I still call on to this day. And I think that networking skill, that understanding that you don't have to know everything. You just need to be confident enough in yourself to go ask the people who might know the thing that you don't know, and then learn from it and work as a team and work in partnership with others. I think those skills are all really important. And when you're just starting out, that I cannot underscore like the importance of network and building that network, and especially in today's environment where face-to-face meetings aren't as often. People are on their phones or on the screens, and so I would just recommend to take every opportunity you can to get in front of people face-to-face. And also, don't be afraid to ask someone for coffee or ask someone for help. I know I feel a big debt of gratitude to all of I never had like a formal mentor, but I had lots of informal mentors. And I, again, wouldn't be where I am if they hadn't helped me get all of those opportunities. Every job I've gotten has been through my network and through a relationship. None of them have been because of some posting or opportunity I heard about. And so I feel a big responsibility to pay it forward and do the same thing for the next generation. And I think a lot of people do too. So don't feel bad about asking someone as a new or kind of someone who's just entering their professional career. Don't feel bad about asking someone. If they can't meet with you or they don't have time, they just won't respond and you'll move on to the next person. And it's fine. But ask them.
You said networking and skills. How can someone in college before they go out into those jobs work on those skills without being, embarrassed?
Yes, yes. Well, I think just getting practice. Lots of organizations like the Indiana Chamber, we have events all the time. We're actually doing a Emerging Leaders Summit on October 1st. It's the first time we've done this here in Indianapolis. But those type of events, I feel like go sign up and go do them and kind of hear from the speakers, introduce yourself to the other folks in the room and at the event. Outside of those kind of networking events or opportunities, there's continued conversations around work-based learning and internships and apprenticeships, both happening here in Indiana and nationwide. And when I think back to my career, I actually got my first internship in high school. I worked at our local insurance agency and worked with one of the brokers there to just help her out with whatever she needed help with. At that point, we were still filing paper things in the file cabinets, and using the computer and doing stuff. But I got exposed to an office environment. I had to learn how to talk to people, talk in a professional way. I went to Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. I did work study there, and I had an office job where, again, I had to interact with lots of different folks. While I was at Dartmouth, I also did an internship at JP Morgan, investment banking. So while you're in college, I would take advantage of all of the informal, like networking event opportunities, but also get yourself an internship or a couple internships or jobs that expose you to those different environments and having to build those skills where you have to talk to people. I also, I guess the last story I'd say about this, one of my first jobs in high school was, in addition to babysitting, I was a waitress at our local airfield cafe. We had this really small airport, and that was probably one of the best jobs I could have gotten, because again, you have to talk to people, you've got to remember their orders, you've got to make them happy, like customer service, that you can never go wrong with those skills. So.
And then after more than a decade in DC, you returned to Indiana, you launched your consulting, and then you stepped into this role at the Chamber. What made you feel the timing was right to come back home, and what would you say to students wrestling with when when to take big pivots in their own career journeys? My apologies.
It's okay. A lot of words. Okay, so this transition from DC to Indiana. So as I mentioned, I had been in DC about 20 years. My husband is the native Hoosier, and in the beginning of 2022, our boys were like 4 and 6, almost 5 and 7. And we had had a great time in DC, had done all these different jobs. But we were ready to do something else. Maybe it was a little bit of like post COVID. Maybe it was a little bit of like, I want to be able to, my kids are really important and want to be able to spend some more time with them. So we thought about, where do we want to go? Indiana, as I say all the time, checked all the boxes. It's a great place to raise a family. We had a lot of friends here, family, a network. So we just decided to take that leap. And I guess this gets back to advice for folks, like, when do you take that leap? I think you have to know in your gut, like, that you're ready to do it. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that would have said, oh, you're an SVP at a Fortune 100 company. Why are you leaving that job to go move halfway across the country when you don't have a new job over there? And I guess I would say that, like, life is short. You never know what's around the corner. And I don't know, like, it's good to do different things and challenge yourself. And so I always tell myself, and I tell other people, once you make the decision to do something, like, don't look back, right? Like, you made the decision for a reason, go do it. And if it doesn't work out, then go get another job or go move somewhere else or whatnot. You want to make strategic and thoughtful decisions, but also don't second guess yourself. You made the decision for a reason. And so that's how my husband and I approached Indiana. And if you had told me 3 years ago that I would be sitting here as president and CEO of the Indiana Chamber, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But that's also because I took a leap of faith. I believed in myself. I knew that it was all going to work out. And I threw myself into everything here in Indiana. And you just never know what opportunities are going to come your way.
You said you took a leap of faith, but sometimes those leap of faiths don't work out. How can students use those bad experiences or bad internships and motivate themselves and see it as, okay, this is progress towards my goal?
Yes. So I, back to like a diversity of experiences. So one of the jobs when I first left Capitol Hill, first of all, the senator that I was working for at the time, he lost re-election. So I wouldn't have left Capitol Hill and the U.S. Senate if he hadn't lost. And I ended up working for this issue campaign, Fix the Debt, as their chief of staff. They were doing a national campaign around kind of fiscal issues. I did that for 8 months. It was a great opportunity, but it was like more of a campaign. It wasn't going to be long term. And I then ended up moving on to the American Hotel and Lodging Association, a trade association, heading up their government affairs. And I never would have gotten that hotel association job if I hadn't had the experience at Fix the Debt, because I got some corporate interaction and kind of business experience. But also, I was only at Fix the Debt for 8 months. It wasn't a long-term thing. So I think, like, just having the perspective that every experience is helping you build your career and your skills and your who you are, that you can then market for the future, and not sometimes finding out what you don't like is as important as what you do like. So if you enter a job or an internship and you're like, this is not what I want to be doing, then make sure the next one is not that, and you've figured out something that you don't want to do. So I think it's just, to me, it's having the mindset of everything that you do, if you're meeting people, growing your network, getting some experience, is going to help you in the future. And as maybe you can tell, I'm definitely a positive person. And I think that, again, life is too short. Give everybody grace, be positive, and move on to the next thing if you need to. So.
And then now, as the first female president of the Indiana Chamber, you're leading an organization that represents over 25,000 members and impacts millions of futures on the daily. For students who might not know what the Chamber does day to day, what are some of your biggest priorities in this new chapter, and how could their generation play a role in Indiana's business future?
Sure. So the Indiana Chamber's mission is all about economic prosperity for the state. We want to cultivate and maintain what we call the world class environment here in Indiana for Hoosiers and enterprises to prosper. So we have an economic vision plan for the state called Indiana Prosperity 2035. It lays out a series of goals and metrics tied to 6 pillars that we believe, and we've talked to lots of stakeholders around the state, are going to help move the state forward and continue allowing the state to be prosperous and successful. And so those 6 pillars are workforce, so talent attraction and retention; education. You're not going to have a strong workforce and a strong state if we don't make sure our kids are educated and are getting the reading and math skills and everything they need with early learning. Economic growth and innovation. We have to be thinking about innovation and how we're growing economically. Infrastructure. None of the economic development is possible and kind of future prosperity for the state if we don't have, energy, water, roads, broadband, all of those things. Quality of place. This goes back to talent attraction and retention. You need to have communities that people want to live in, and then healthy citizens and communities. So everything from healthcare access and cost to public health to civic engagement. So what I would say to the next generation is, I think some people might think the chamber is about having a good tax and regulatory environment in the state, which Indiana does. We're in the top 10 in the country, but it's more than that. It's all of those things. And so we are about how do we propel Indiana forward from an economic standpoint to secure our future and to make sure we continue to be prosperous. And we do that through advocacy. So all the work we do over at the State House and a bit at the federal level too, so public policy, we do it by engaging our members, and we do it by kind of supporting partnerships and having a partnership approach and providing resources and support to businesses and employers across the state. My vision for the chamber is obviously all about that advocacy, all about that member engagement, and really having the chamber be that convener and thought leader with, lots of other leaders from across the state to help move our state forward.
It's a lot on your plate that would require a lot of balance, and you've talked about the challenge of balance, especially after promising your kids you would walk them to school when you left DC.
Yes.
And students often wonder if they'll ever figure out work-life balance. How do you think about balance now, and what perspective would you share with young professionals where you're trying to do it all?
So I don't know. I guess maybe I don't know that I would use the word balance. I do think it's different for every person, but for me, I really enjoy my work. I want to get up in the morning and feel like I am contributing and making a difference. So I throw myself into whatever I'm doing. But I also am not going to compromise on my kids and my family. And so to me, I made a promise to myself when I took this job that I was going to do it my way. And that probably means I'm not in the office from 8 to 6 every day, because there are days when I'm going to go pick up my kids at 3:20, see them, and then go to some event later that night, or work from home for a bit. And so to me, it is about making my work and life fit together and almost integrating them, because I need to be able to do both. And then also I would say, I had a former boss tell me one time, when you need to do something for your kids, be all in and do something for your kids. When you need to do something for work, be all in and do something for work. Knowing that there are going to be times where you're going to have to choose your family or whatever that thing is outside of work, because that's what's important. And then there are going to be times where that work thing is going to be important, and that's okay too. But knowing how to make those choices and compartmentalize. And then I say this as a working mom for other probably more females listening to this, but do not beat yourself up. don't feel guilty. You just do the best you can every day and know that that's enough. Because I think in particular, you can just feel guilty about things or wonder if you made the right decision. Did you do that right thing for your kid or work? And you made the best decision at the time with the information you had, and then you just got to move forward.
And then you said that people along the way have opened doors for you, and now you'd like to pay that forward when students or professionals ask for advice. For a student listening who wants to build those kinds of relationships, what's the right way to reach out and make a connection with leaders like yourself?
So this is probably dating myself a little bit, but I guess I would say, everything from email to LinkedIn to text. I think, and meeting someone in person and then following up. I don't think there's probably one right way. I think that students, you need to be persistent. And I tell folks who meet with me, if you reach out to me and I don't respond to you right away, it's okay. You can email me again. If I really don't have time, I just won't respond. I think in this day and age, people get so much inputs coming at them that I think you can't feel bad about following up a few times. And if the person doesn't want to meet with you, then they won't respond and you move on to the next person. I also tell folks that when you meet with someone for a networking conversation, try to get one or two other names of people that they are going to connect you with. You don't just want the conversation to stop there and have that person be thinking about opportunities for you. You want to then be connected to their network, not 10 people, but if they have one or two suggestions that they're willing to open a door for, then you then go meet with those two people, and then those two people connect you with two more people. So kind of expanding your network that way, and utilizing the relationships and kind of connections you have, whether that's through your college or your work or your family, and just not being afraid to use them.
You said find that one person and find the 3 people that are connected with them. Many students, at these networking events almost see it as transactional. I'm going to get 50 LinkedIn connection requests today. What? already shaking it. How can they start focusing less on collecting the contacts and more just on building the relationship? And then what are the steps to doing that? Are they asking for coffee? Is it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I think about my career, as I said, I have never been a formal mentor to folks, but I have never been the formal mentee, I guess. And all of the mentors that I had earlier in my career were because of kind of, I would say, more relationships that I had developed. Some were folks that I had worked directly with, but some were kind of contacts that I worked peripherally with. And look, I had the benefit of DC is a town of relationships. That is everything, right? And as a chief of staff to a senator or kind of positions like that, you meet a lot of people. And I also, when I was in those roles, I always tried to help people out, be nice, respond to people. That's the other thing that I would say. People, I think, remember that. So I would almost say for students, look at every job, internship, volunteer opportunity when you're interacting with folks. All of those people could be your mentors. And I never thought about it as they're all going to be my mentors. I just thought about it as I'm just going to do a good job and do the right thing. And, they turned out to be my mentors. So I think it is right I think you have to think more about relationships than 50 LinkedIn contacts, because there's no way to differentiate you from the 49 other contacts that you're sending out or getting.
And then in the podcast, we like to do a couple rapid fire questions. So what is one leadership belief you had early in your career that took you too long to unlearn?
So this is not rapid fire. I I don't think I had enough perspective earlier in my career, and things would stress me out, and I would take things really seriously. And the longer that I've been in the job, in the working world, I think that perspective of like, the sun is going to rise tomorrow and it's all going to be okay, right? And kind of just taking things seriously, but not too seriously, because otherwise you would just not act and wouldn't be able to do anything.
A book or resource you think every student should pick up before graduating?
A book or resource? That one, I don't have a good. I am not a big reader of the different kind of, I don't know, philosophies of leadership. And that's not because I don't think they're good. I just honestly feel like I don't have time for that. And so I, again, find much more value in my relationships and kind of interactions and feedback that I get from folks.
One skill you wish more young professionals had when they enter the workforce?
Being able to communicate, and kind of recognizing that when you're starting out, you sometimes just have to put in the work, and you might be at the bottom for a bit before you move up. Like when I started on Capitol Hill, I was a legislative correspondent responding to constituent mail, and at the bottom of the bottom, answering the phone, giving tours. But that job set me up for so much success going forward. And just don't be afraid of those experiences.
And then if you could put one piece of advice on a billboard for every student in Indiana to see, what would it say?
Be confident in yourself and say yes to new opportunities.
Thank you for your time.